eventually, obviously, when our location's up and running, or not up and running, but as far as our coffee equipment is up and running, we can then really take hours of practice without customers. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing a lot this week, at least in town. For larger questions, or what I've been doing for the business as a whole, is trying to get our show times, like what actual films we're going to have, a little bit more set. We've been waiting till we have a little more firm open date than we have to really pull the trigger on that. But this week it looks like it's good. So that I was able to do a little planning there. We're working on our ticketing software, integrating that with our website. Actually buying a couple of equipment pieces specifically on the sound, and so lots of different stuff in the air.
Nice.
But that's kind of little things.
Yeah. That's great.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Oh, I'm always ready.
So you just got to talk at the end of the mic right there. So
do I need to be like
here?
You can move it.
You can pull it around
and
with you. And
it's all good. All right, we are live. Offices of China Hall on a Monday afternoon. Woo woo. We made it.
The best time to podcast, Monday afternoon.
I know, right? It actually kind of gets the day going, which is good.
It does. This is round 2.
Hashtag Monday motivation. You guys already did one this morning?
Yeah.
Wow.
We messaged you and you're like, yeah, what about tomorrow? I was like, okay, well, we'll have the stuff set up. Let's go.
Let's
rock and roll. I mean, it's good. We're learning a lot, and it's a fun way to break up the day, and it's a good conversation that we enjoy having.
Awesome. Who's on this morning? Can I ask?
Yeah, go for it. So who was on?
It was Fernbrook.
And what they are focused on is mental health, and they have now 50 employees here in the community.
Started at 4.
Started with 4, yep. And
something
quick.
to aspire to.
Yeah.
And so they have been making a lot of major changes locally. They're getting a new building over on West Circle Drive. They're trying to bring mental health to the forefront of conversation, where it has often not been at the forefront. It's been like they shared behind the scenes in a closed room, and this has happened nationally. It's not just them, but they're doing a good job of doing it locally. And
awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yep.
Not as fun as this conversation is going to be.
That's true.
Though, right?
I know you're just saying that 'cause I'm here, but I appreciate that.
All right, we are here today with Andy Smith. Andy is the proud owner of Grey Duck Theater in Rochester, Minnesota. Andy, you get to make your own intro. I usually don't make somebody's intro, but who are you? What are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm an amazing person. So I guess now I am an entrepreneur. It's kind of weird to introduce myself as that now because it's a new title I'm taking on. But I'm the owner and founder of Grey Duck Theater and Coffee House, which is Rochester's only, I don't know if I can say this, Upper Midwest generally, only Microcinema. And what we mean by that is an intimate theater experience that is different than what 99% of us are used to when we go to a movie.
Yeah.
We're used to going to the AMC or whatever the big chains are in the area, and going to see a movie, which is fine. I'm not anti those things, but I think there is a different aspect to theater. I guess I'm already getting into my business, so I'll just leave that for now and just keep talking about me. I actually grew up in Southern California. I love film. That's really where I started falling in love with film culture and what goes into filmmaking and talking and building community around film. And then when I moved to the Midwest, my wife is from the Twin Cities area. I recognized that there wasn't quite that same community or feel here, for obvious reasons, right? It's not the movie-making capital of the world. But even outside of that, I had trouble finding places, especially outside of the major cities, where this community was being built. And so that really led us to wanting to open a place like Grey Duck Theater. Were
you ever working at a theater when you were younger? What's your experience with film as a business in some way? Yeah, that's an interesting question, because the really short answer is not any. Most of my growing up, which is, look at me, you wouldn't guess this, it was in security industry. I did a lot of years as a security officer in downtown Chicago. So all of my understanding of film as business is from a non-professional viewpoint. So whether that's organizing my own showings or sort of, when you're in school, campus showings, et cetera. But I was never paid for any of that. A couple times you do have to haggle with studios for rights and that sort of thing. So I had a little understanding there. But it wasn't until I had this concept of
the Microcinema, what it could be. That is inspired. I mean, I didn't come up with it out of nowhere. It is inspired by other places around the world that do this, that I started asking questions. There was actually one really helpful article I found online, and then I reached out to that author, and we talked a little bit about sort of the business side of film. So short answer to that question is, I, growing up, did not have an official side of movie experience. I was never a crew member at an AMC or whatever, but had that sort of personal love of it and sort of transitioned that more professionally.
And with film, what is it that you love so much about it? Like, what is that side of the industry?
How long do you have? So the first, just to give you a picture, the first movie that really transitioned me from like, oh, these are really fun stories to watch, to like, wow, this is really great craft, is Lord of the Rings, which is a tremendous trilogy, obviously. But if anyone out there has ever watched the extended editions of the DVDs, there's big fat boxes, and each of them, for each movie, they have about 6 hours of bonus features. And it's not like general bonus features where, you know, they have interviews with actors and they're like, we loved working on this project, you know, and that's the end of the special feature. On most DVDs, they actually went all the way through pre-production to shooting to production to post-production, which some of it is very boring if you're not tuned in. But I mean, they went to storyboarding and casting and, you know, pre-production in the sense of just small models that aren't even going to be filmed for anything, but it's to visualize and help bring together this craft all the way through the filming, all the way through the editing, even like coloration they went through, which is a very boring aspect of making films. Well, I mean, I guess if you do it, it's not boring necessarily, but for the average person, no one wants to hear about the color gradation and, you know, where on the scale. Anyway. But they did that on these DVDs, and that, I think I first watched that when I was like in 6th grade. That really opened up to me all that it took to make a film, and that really, you know, threw me into the waters of loving film. I also think that Lord of the Rings is really valuable in the sense of it since it was my entry drug to like film as art, for, you know, lack of a better term. I know that sounds kind of hoity-toity, but whatever. I think it kept me from being very highbrow, right? Because those are popular movies. You know, Lord of the Rings isn't, you know, it's not like I'm saying Seventh Seal by, you know, Bergman. Like, it's not a deep cut film. So it taught me to appreciate large blockbusters. It taught me to appreciate films that everyone has seen. And then it also led me to some of those more obscure sort of filmmaking aspects that, you know, only really cinephiles or film buffs really care about. So I think that was very important in my development as a lover of film. What do I love about film was the original question. I think in a short version, well, I'll take this in two directions. First, from an artistic standpoint, I think it's just beautiful that film, more than any other media, incorporates all other kinds of art. Like I just said, you need to have a visual element, which doesn't just come straight from a camera. If you're in a big production, you have to have a storyboard. You have to have usual drawings to sort of visualize where you're going. You have to have scouting of different locations. So there's all these aspects of that. There's also needs to be beautiful music and score. The sound needs to be beautiful. It incorporates all different kinds of art into this single medium that all have to jive. If one is great and the other is great, but they don't mix together, then it's not going to work, right? Mission Impossible is not going to work with Claude Debussy musical, you know, piano interlude. Like, you have to make these things jive. So the level of, I think, artistic talent and collaboration in film is beautiful. Okay, I'm going to switch to a different stage of things that is a little less hoity-toity. All that said, the great thing about film is that everyone appreciates it sort of intrinsically in our culture. It's a great equalizer. And in that sense, that's what I mean when I say that film is a great community builder. Because in every room in America, I should say maybe just about every room, so there's some rooms somewhere where you can't do this. You say, hey, what's your favorite movie, or what's the movies you like? And that starts a conversation that can go for as long or as short as you want, right? Whether it's a silly comedy or it's this, you know, the most serious of dramas, you can have conversation around that. It challenges you. Roger Ebert has this great quote where he says,
movies are the greatest empathy machines in the world because it forces you to live in someone else's shoes for 2.5 hours or 2 hours. And it's true. It's incredibly influential in my life and my viewpoint on everything from politics to social issues to, my opinions on art, whatever, throughout the spectrum, because I've lived in other people's shoes through film. And even if people don't recognize that, we've all done that at one point or another. And I think that's what makes it such a powerful force. Well, it can be a powerful force for good. Or we all know from history, propaganda is also incredibly powerful for ill. So I love the power that it has over human connection and human relationships at the same point as I recognize the artistic beauty of each film. There we go. That was a really long-winded answer.
And that connection is what got you so passionate about it, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a very personal person. I love community, and that higher aspect of it, I think, is what makes movies so beautiful. And you don't even have to be, have studied film or gone to film school or even watched a lot of movies. When you watch a movie, you instinctively want to talk to somebody else, even if you hated it. If you watch a movie by yourself, you immediately talk to people at work the next day, like, oh yeah, I saw, I don't know, X movie. It was great, or it was terrible, or I can't believe they made this movie. If you go on this is a good example. If you're on an airplane, you watch the movie, you're probably going to talk to the person who you're on the airplane with when you get off. You're like, oh yeah, I saw this movie. It was okay. And whether it's a short conversation or a long conversation, you want to talk to somebody else because that's what it elicits. It's almost impossible to just watch a movie and then just put it away. If you can't do that, I think it's a sign of a bad movie.
That's a good, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Why do I like Adam Sandler movies so much?
Because they're funny. Well, some of them. Early
Yeah,
Sandler more
early
than
Sandler
more than late
That's right.
Sandler.
Gosh darn it.
But that, I mean, because like it's the beautiful thing about comedy, right? It's hilarious, but also comedy, to be funny, is reflecting real life. Anyway, we can talk about a lot about that, but it's you would just want to talk about it, even if we're just talking about stupid gags and Waterboy. Like that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like it brings people together in a very powerful way, I think, and across spectrums. Whether it's economic distinctions, whether it's racial distinctions, whether it's anything that sort of divides us by class or caste in our society. When you watch a movie, especially when the lights are turned low, you're experiencing the same thing. Now, that doesn't mean everyone's experience is the same, because everyone comes to things with preconditions and thoughts and perspectives. But if you're really into a movie, you're experiencing it from the point of view of that director and writer and whatever else. And if you do that, it has the power and potential to change you, or at least elicit something in you as a response.
So the Grey Duck movie theater and coffee house.
Mm-hmm.
What did your wife say to you when you told her you were going to actually open up this place?
Well, so it started very slow. I had this idea kind of percolating in my mind since college, and then I have videos on this on our IGTV, Instagram TV account. So if you want to go check out sort of specifically how I spell out how I got that concept, that's a good place to go for a little more background. But I read an article, the title of which was How to Start Your Own Indie Movie Theater for Under $15,000. First of all, that's a red herring. You can't do it for under $15,000. Bucky knows well.
Not possible. That was.
It's like we tried.
That's what it said in the article.
Yeah, can't do it. But it did really take a deep dive into, if you wanted to do this, what it would look like. And so I read that and thought, this is possible. I could do this. And so when I read that, I showed her the article, and she, just kind of smirked and said, yeah, whatever. But I couldn't shake it. And so I drew up sort of a basic business plan, sort of some ideas of where we would do it, and then started looking at property. This is getting into your aspect, because that is also an inspiration when you look at spaces and what they can be used for. And I thought we could find a very unique space to have this sort of property. And then about a month went by, and she sort of realized this wasn't, a passing thing. And so then, you have to have the real conversation of like, okay, everything from this is our financial situation to this is our mental health situation to this is, whatever else. Can we do this? And I think she just recognized the passion I had for the idea and didn't want to stand in that way. Because she is not in any sense sort of a entrepreneurial spirit. She wouldn't do this on her own. She would say this if she were here. But she noticed that in me, and probably people who are watching this recognize, the passion I have for film, that is really what I wanted to do. And so she sort of reluctantly was like, well, let's see where this goes. And then the rest sort of is history. As we really, from there, we went downhill very quickly in a good way, obviously. Speed.
Like, that doesn't sound good. So how did you guys meet? Because you started looking for properties, right?
Yeah, we met.
But you were in the cities at that point.
I was in Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is very different. I was working as a teacher at the time at a small private school in Miami.
What were you teaching?
This is kind of funny, and this might open up a whole other cans of worms. I was teaching Bible. I actually have a master's degree in theology and an undergraduate in theology. So that was my background. There's a lot of stories about, and part of that is how movie has changed me in a lot of different ways. But that was a short version that was a career path I didn't want to go on anymore. And so.
Were you teaching about the Bible?
Yeah. So, you.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Yeah.
What's within it? How to read it?
Yeah. I was also teaching a history of theology class. That was sort of an upper level
what age
class. Group? High schoolers.
Okay.
High schoolers. So it was a small private Christian school. So I was doing that, but we knew that at the end of the year we were not going to be doing that anymore. We'd already, let everybody know. What was the original question on here? How do we meet? So in February of that year, I'm in Miami. And so I'm looking at properties, like I mentioned before, wanting to find a space. We wanted to do it in the upper Midwest. We wanted to do this somewhere where there wasn't something like this. And we knew the upper Midwest culture pretty well. And so we didn't want to go in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Chicago.
Due to competition or due to what you wanted for a lifestyle? What was the...
No, it was because of absence, really. We wanted to go to a place that didn't have this. Mm-hmm. And while I think it is rarer in even like a St. Paul, Minneapolis to find something like us and not something exactly like us, there is something there. You have the film school theater downtown. There's a couple places in the Twin Cities that sort of do what we're doing. So it's less about competition, more about, I guess, places like Rochester or Des Moines or these other places that aren't big university towns. They sort of get passed over culturally, I feel like, a lot of times. So we wanted to bring something really important and cultural to those areas because that's where we had sort of grown up. We understood those areas that didn't have them. And so we looked at Grand Rapids, we looked at Des Moines, like I mentioned, and then kind of randomly, I didn't even know Rochester existed, full admittance.
Rochester rocks.
Who are you guys?
Yeah, I didn't know about it. I didn't know about Mayo Clinic. I'm young and in health, fortunately, so I didn't know about Mayo. Anyway, I sort of randomly stumbled across this listing that I thought, oh, that's really interesting. This is a town of over 100,000 people. I don't know much about it, but I'll reach out to the realtor. I don't remember if it was on Craigslist or it was probably...
Had to be LoopNet.
It was probably LoopNet.
It had to be.
And it was Bucky on the other end of the line. And actually, that property I never looked at, never saw again. We were pretty quick to be like, yeah, that's not going to work. But Bucky was like, I love this idea. I love this business, idea. And so he said, give me a day. Not, if you can come to Rochester, I think I can sell you on Rochester. Because I think I even said to you, like, we're not really sure about Rochester. We're just kind of looking at this property. He's like, I can sell you on Rochester. So we did. So I was visiting my in-laws for spring break. Very exciting spring break, I know. And then we came down.
Home.
We came down a day. Not many people on their spring break
We're
go
leaving
from Miami to
We're going to Rochester.
St.
Have you
Paul
heard about
Rochester.
it?
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Flights were really cheap, though.
Yeah, they were. Well,
some
one
guy
way.
named Bucky. What the heck?
One way they were.
Actually, so this is a side note, but the best ticket I ever bought on a plane, I once paid $22 to fly from Milwaukee to Fort Lauderdale.
Sweet.
Yeah, so there you go.
Were you
Milwaukee
in like
Fort
the undercarriage? Or?
Yeah, they taped me to the bottom of the plane, but I got there all right. Side note, anyway. So I came down a day, and Bucky showed me around, and not just in the sense of like we drove around Rochester. He stopped, introduced me to what would become fellow businessmen and women in the area, even people in sort of an entertainment business and what they were doing. Took me to certain coffee shops in the area. That's how I first met Fiddlehead, was on that day. The owners at Fiddlehead.
That wasn't it? That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
they
really
were
cool,
at
that connection.
Forager at that time.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And we did hit it off with Patrick and Sarah, who were there, and then eventually, that led to our partnership. But it just sold us on the idea of this is a great place that has fantastic people. It had sort of that Midwest spirit that we loved, but was also a big sort of thriving metropolis that didn't have a lot of places for people to go and do something unique. And especially in the movie area. There's nothing particularly wrong with any of the Cineplexes in the area, but there's only 3 of them, and they're all very, sort of by the numbers Cineplexes. And so we said, let's do this. And so it was really that one day, really at the end of it, even Anna, my wife, was like, I think this is the place where we're going. And it was. We looked at the place. We're at 619 over on 6th Avenue Northwest. That's what we looked at that day. And we went for it, pulled the trigger.
Yes, that's awesome. I wish we would have documented that day.
That's cool.
We're vlogging today.
Yeah.
Holding the GoPro the whole way.
Exactly.
Wouldn't that be sweet?
If only we had done a
We can
Thursday
recreate
market
it.
update while we were doing that.
We can recreate it.
We can. I still remember very specifically. I met Zach, who was on our live stream earlier that day. Who else? We met a lot of people.
Paul, down at Dwell Local.
Paul, of course. He was like the first person I met besides you in Rochester, which is always a good thing. It was great. I fell in love with the Design District, which is the area that we're from, which if people out there don't know, it's a great area on 6th Avenue Northwest, just north of Civic Center Drive. It's just this little pocket of beauty where you got a lot of really great home decor shops. Now you have a beautiful coffee shop with us, movie theater. It's also Workstot if you ever need any European car work done.
Yeah.
It's just a really great place to walk around. It's just jewel, and everyone there is very unified in purpose in wanting to make it a location to go to. So that was great. Rochester whole was great. We love the feel of it. It was a beautiful day. Beautiful spring day like we're having today. So it was a great experience, and that really got us going. And then from there, we had a lot more troubles with Rochester that we maybe can talk about or not talk about, but we had to work a long time to get this to where we're at now. So that was over a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, it was. But still, look at where we are a year from now. We're making progress. So let's talk about that journey of trying to open up your first business, because this is officially your first business.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what is that like, opening your first business? What are you learning?
I mean, I think instinctually people know this, but there's just so many things that you don't know and you're not an expert in that you immediately have to be, well, you're never going to be immediately an expert on, but you have to throw yourself into. And really, I mean, a lot of it is surprisingly, well, do we curse on this podcast?
If you want to curse, you can curse.
Last one asked that too.
Okay, so I was trying to dance around this, but really, like,
He said poop a couple times.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go one step more. So a lot of this is bullshitting. Like, a lot of entrepreneurship is like, I don't really know about architectural plans, but I'm gonna listen to my architect and I'm gonna put in my thoughts, and that's what you got to do. I'm not an expert on food safety, but I gotta learn enough so that I keep my customers safe. I'm not an expert on, any number of things, construction costs or ventilation was a big one, or HVAC systems. You got to get good help and you got to listen to them, but you also have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of thoughts, a lot of sleepless nights, which I always thought people just said as like a humble brag or like, yeah, it was, but like literally I've had nights where like I'm up at night thinking of, like, is that the right paint color? Is that, should we spend this much money on a countertop? Should it be matte or should it be shiny? Anyway, I could do a whole bunch of those things.
How much of the process have you documented?
Video-wise?
Like in that kind of the sense of starting and the whole building and all that kind of stuff?
I mean, like, we have everything on paper, but as far as sort of anything that would be interesting to sort of watch or see, I don't think we've documented a lot of it. Towards the end, we did a little better at that. But sort of general hit points I have very clearly in my mind, like when we signed a lease, and then when we first went to the city with our plans, and then, you know, when we first started building architectural plans. So those things I can remember very distinctly, but they all sort of start to blend together when you look back on it. But really, my number one lesson from being an entrepreneur is that you just have to be okay with not knowing exactly what you're doing and trying to catch up as much as you can, and leaning on other people. I was immensely blessed with the people who happened to be around me, Bucky being one of them, Tassos, our ownership group, people at Fiddlehead. I had a guy named Barry at Trilon Cinema in Minneapolis was very helpful.
On the equipment side?
On the equipment side, and he just sat and listened to us and allowed us to ask him questions about perforated screen versus non-perforated. I mean, stuff that probably is not very interesting to those listening. But that was very helpful. And so people are willing to help, you know, reach out, ask them. But at the end of the day, you just have to be able to keep going, even though you're not an expert, which is definitely like a skill set you have to develop. Because it's not natural to be making choices that greatly affect your financial and mental well-being, while also not having all the information or years of experience that you want. But you just have to do it and keep things going, and it served us well.
What's your goal of someone that is going to visit the theater? What's your goal of their feedback? You know, other than it just being a good movie.
Yeah.
What would be some of your goals?
Succinctly, is I'd like them to want to be a part of our community when they experience it. And they can experience that in various forms. They can experience that in the coffee that we make and the excellence that we make it, showing them that we really put care and love into our products, and so they want to be a part of that. Or through a movie experience, and perhaps seeing a movie they wouldn't otherwise see, or the conversation that springs from that in the area. But the bottom line is I want people to experience it and say, I want to be around this more. And if we can achieve that, that's the most important aspect. Patrick at Fiddlehead always says that their product isn't coffee, it's people. And the reason we gravitated to each other is because I think the same way about film. Our product isn't the film that you watch. It is the people that watch it and how it affects them. And so that's really why we jive so well and wanted to come together and partner, is because we think that's the most important thing. And unfortunately, I think when most people see a movie these days, it is just for the movie, right? You go see the movie, you leave, and you talk about it maybe in the car or whatever. But you went to see Captain Marvel, or you went to see Us, which are two great movies that I have nothing against, but you're not going for an experience, or you're not going for, a community. And we want that to be a part of people's thoughts as they come to Great Oak Theater and Coffee House, which is why we offer sort of easy ways to be a part of the community. Easy meaning our tickets are not going to be expensive. We have $8 single screen tickets, $12 double features. We offer a $20 a month subscription program where if you get that, you can come to all of our regular showings for free. We offer a lot of what we call event cinema, or special events, as another way of saying that, where you can sort of jump into something unique, where we usually have Q&As afterwards, or even like during certain films. So a lot of ways that people can jump in, or just come regularly, get your lattes with us, or get your macchiatos with us and talk to us about movies. Hey, come get your morning coffee and then ask our baristas, who will know the answer to this question, what's playing this weekend? What's it about? Why are you guys playing it? And that's, I think, a higher plane of sort of ingesting media than just going to see a movie, which I don't think is bad. Like, I have to be very careful in these conversations, get excited about it. Like, I still go to the movie theaters to watch Captain Marvel or Us or Alita Battle Angel. I love movies, so I just love to go see them. But I think there is there's seeing movies and there's experiencing these movies in a community that we want people to be a part of. So, because you won't be showing like the brand new movies, right? We'll be showing some brand new movies is the answer to that. But the new movies we show will be independent in nature. Okay. So it'll never be, us or Captain Marvel or a Star Wars movie or whatever else. But it will be movies people might think as Oscar movies, or these smaller independent movies that usually don't even get play at all in areas like Rochester. We'll show. Along with that, we'll show classic films. We're hoping to have a series on Audrey Hepburn. We'll also show documentaries. We'll also show foreign films. So we're trying to get a well-rounded film diet into our show times. And part of that is the community. We hope people will trust us because there'll be movies that we'll show that they've never heard of. They'll probably have to look up the trailer on YouTube, which is fine. And that's sort of an exciting part of this as well. Some things will be things you've heard of. Some things you've really heard of. We'll have an Indiana Jones marathon. But there'll also be stuff where you'll be like, Liana, what's that? And it's, by a Zimbabwean filmmaker that you'd never have heard of if you weren't part of our community, and say, hey, that's interesting. I want to take part in that. So we're trying to get a lot of different aspects of sort of the film industry in general in our one place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to mind is, how will the space be used for events and things like that? Because that's probably going to play in quite a bit as well. I'm sure there'll be people that will use it for private showings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The cool thing about sort of how movie theaters work is there's a lot of different ways that you could use the space for either corporately or personally, right? Probably the most usual is a birthday party, right? You rent out the space and then you show a movie. And at that point, it's a private event. You're not selling tickets. You can show whatever you want in our theater. We would just, you would pay the single down cost. There's also, churches do this a lot where they will buy out all of the seats in a showing so that they have sort of the whole space. Especially when religious movies like, Passion of the Christ is the classic example. But there's others that come out. They'll, buy out all the tickets and then they'll sort of resell them at discounted rates to their members or whoever else, so that they can come and watch the movie. That's also a great way to do it. Corporations also like to do that for movies that hit on certain themes that are part of their business themes, or just sort of a corporate, get out of the office time, so that you can use that as well. We also, if you are a filmmaker, we're very open to people saying, hey, I have this film, or we want to show this film. Can we do it, a special event? We're totally open to that. We're actually going to have a really, really cool film about, I think it's the Dakota tribe, but it's a Native American film about modern day Native Americans. And it's this beautiful film. I am blanking on the name. I'm so sorry about that. Neither Wolf or something else. Man, I feel bad that I'm forgetting this. But we're having that special event at the end of May, which is awesome. It's just someone showing their film where it wouldn't get play at an AMC usually. So it's this special thing that we're able to have. So there's a lot of different ways to utilize the space outside of how we are doing it regularly. So if you're out there,
and you can go in there and just hang out for a coffee too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like absolutely. Yeah, we'll be open just as a regular coffee shop. So please come by and buy some coffee.
And when is it open? Because you said end of May that's coming up.
We're hoping May. I'm hoping it's not the end of May. I'm hesitant to give a date because our opening showing, our grand opening is going to be awesome. We're showing Gold Rush, which is a 1925 classic by Charlie Chaplin. It's beautiful, and we're having a live musical score played by a local musician, Christopher Alexander, graduate of St. Olaf College in their music department. He's a really great pianist. He'll be doing an original score that he put together from various different things while the movie is playing. We'll also have a Q&A and a couple other really fun stuff. So those are very limited tickets. We have about 30 tickets left. It's also kind of a fundraiser to help us get going. Tickets are $70, and we want to offer those tickets first to our newsletter subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, do that, because we're going to send out a newsletter very soon with directions on how to buy tickets, and then we'll release it to the public. But hopefully May is when we'll be up and running.
Very cool.
All right.
That's quick, yeah.
Are you excited to go to a movie there? I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Many movies.
Yeah, many movies.
Yeah.
You'll be a monthly subscriber.
How many seats are going to be available?
We have 66 seats.
Okay, so that's more than I thought.
Yeah, so we'll be wheelchair accessible. We're really working to be as accessible. Part of the community is really making as wide a berth as we can. So that goes down to we'll have special showings that we'll call family showings, where we have we'll not dim the lights. The lights won't be off; they'll be dimmed. It will be with an understanding that kids will be in there. Kids make noises and all that sort of stuff. So we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. And at the same time, sorry, I just remembered I want to talk about this a little bit. We are very committed to protecting the experience of our community. And because of that, we also have higher standards for sort of regular show times than most places do. So just as an example, we don't allow children into movies that are PG-13 and R. So anyone under 13 years old cannot go to a PG-13 or R movie at our place. The regular rule is they have to have a guardian. We just won't allow it. And part of that is to protect the integrity and experience for people who are in our movie theater. We have a very strict cell phone policy. If we see a cell phone, we will ask you to leave.
Josh, don't get kicked out.
Yeah. So, part of that is we know that, some people might see that as, that's so annoying or very strict, but we think it's protecting other people
and the experience.
Because whatever you say, when you're not the person using the cell phone, it ruins the experience. It brings you out of the movie. So we're very strict on that, or loud talking, or all kinds.
You know what I'm thinking,
Bucky? I can't talk right now. I'm in the movie.
Let's reschedule the podcast for later.
So Josh and Bucky will not be allowed.
I was talking earlier about this bag that you put your cell phone into, and schools now have it, and it cuts off your service for that time being, or whatever the case may be. You need that at the front.
Yeah, seriously.
Put your phone in here. All right, cool. We are just about to our 40-minute mark. That's where we like to wrap up the Offices of China Hall podcast. We'd like to go out with one question. I'll let Josh come up with the question this time.
I'm coming up with the question. I like social media. I think it's a big part of business and entrepreneur stuff.
Yeah. What
is Grey Duck doing and going to be doing, and how do you want to use that in marketing Grey Duck?
Specifically social media.
Yes.
So the wide answer to that is it's obviously very important to reach people and to make people feel involved. Again, all of this goes back to sort of our community emphasis. And people can't be everywhere all the time. But you do sort of live, in a sense, these days online, on your phone, and how you see things. So we want people to be able to feel part of what we're doing, understand and know what we're doing through social media aspect of that. We also want to be connected to the larger film community that's not just in Rochester, that is throughout the world. So we're already following filmmakers. They're following us back. I've had a couple already reach out to us, just sort of getting in that system, which is very important. So that's part of our social media presence, but also a major part of it is to get the word out. And we've been very proactive about people understanding the brand, understanding what we're doing. Right now, we're already over 2,000 followers, and we haven't served a cup of coffee or shown a movie. So we're really encouraged by that and want that to continue to grow, because we do see that as our primary means of getting the word out. We have email chains, which are very important. We're going to have a really cool partnership with the Post Bulletin and 507 Magazine. We'll have a consistent piece in there to tell about the movies that we're having. But we do see the primary mode of getting the word out is going to be online. And that's not just to, I think when people think social media, they think of high schoolers or millennials, but that's just not the case anymore. Mm-hmm. Everyone is on Facebook. Everyone's mom is on Facebook. And that's an important part of finding out about what's going on. Usually people don't go to the classifieds anymore. They go to their Facebook event page.
Which is so powerful. I've been amazed at how Facebook continually makes updates that just they're making them the community spot for all things. News, all things. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think what'll really even help it grow further is how Steam is, everyone that goes into Steam takes a picture of their coffee and like tags them and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Like you get people having coffee and watching movies and like tagging it. All their friends are now going to see that, and, you know, and I think it'll really help in that sense too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're blessed to be in a very aesthetic business. Like, I guess I've never been a mechanic, but I feel like it would be tough to be on Instagram as a mechanic. I'm probably actually that's a very aesthetic. Maybe that's not a good example. I don't know. You know, a dentist.
Probably
less.
I
don't know what you're gonna
doing it.
You don't see a lot of plumbers on Instagram.
I don't know what you're. Yeah, I don't know what you're putting on Instagram as a plumber. Like that's tough. But like, our business is extremely aesthetic. Coffee is extremely aesthetic. Obviously, films are extremely aesthetic. Our space is beautiful. You know, so we have the easy job of posting, you know, the actual posting of pictures or posting stills from films that we're watching or the newest latte art that one of our baristas did. Like, that's easy. That looks great. Everyone loves that. Or like, you know, customers saying, hey, we're going to this movie. This is really cool. Tagging us in it. Like
You'll
that's
get a lot of that.
That's going to be huge, especially as we open up and we're sort of the new thing in town and people are trying to figure out what we're doing. That's going to be huge. And so please do that, audience. I don't know what camera I'm on, but if you're out there, tag us, post us. And people have already been doing that before we're open. And so that's really exciting. Our brand is very important to us. We do have a brand management company that we work with, that we're clients of. And that's not because we want to be like corporate or whatever, but it is important to communicate our concept, which is fairly unique. There's not places like us around the area. Normally, it's either they're showing new films or it's just sort of a repository film. It's rare to have sort of this conglomerate that we have that isn't trying to be an art cinema or like very avant-garde. We're trying to be very down to earth. We're trying to be very communal focused. And so we want that to be communicated in our social media as well. It's a long answer to the final question, but check us out at Gray Duck Theater.
That's great.
Gray is Gray, and then the theater is just Theater. So no fancy British or French spellings of anything. At Gray Duck Theater, both on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please look us up. We're very active, and we'd love to hear from you. If you want to see a movie, if you want to, you know, whatever else, talk to us. If you're interested in showing maybe a film that you're doing, all of that, please reach out to us. We're really excited to be a part of the community and start building our community within that community at Gray Duck Theater.
There you have it. And I'm Bucky. I'm over at the offices of China Hall. And if you know anybody that wants to come hang out at the offices of China Hall, more than welcome to come hang out, play some ping pong, get beat in some ping pong.
Ooh,
what
challenge.
day is that?
Thursdays. Well, any days.
Thursday.
We got the ping pong table set up. And anybody that wants to be on the podcast, let us know as well. Who are you?
And I'm Josh, guys. I own MediaCore here in town, social media marketing and video production.
Be sure to check out Gray Duck Theater over on Instagram.